President Biden is in the battleground state of Pennsylvania as he continues his week of campaigning ahead of the midterm election. The president is helping Democratic Lieutenant Governor John Fetterman raise money in one of the most competitive Senate races in the country. He also stopped at the site of a bridge that collapsed in Pittsburgh nearly 9 months ago. The president said the bridge is being rebuilt at a speedy pace and gave credit to his infrastructure plan.
For too long, we talked about building the best economy in the world and the best infrastructure in the world. We talked about asserting America's leadership. We talked about the best and the safest roads, railroads, ports, airports, and so much more. But now we didn't do it. We're finally getting to it. We're getting it done. We finally decided that instead of being ranked number 13 in the world, 13 in the world in infrastructure, the United States, 13 in the world in infrastructure, we should be ranked number 1.
The president also criticized Republicans who did not help pass the infrastructure bill as it moved through Congress. CBS News senior White House and political correspondent Ed O'Keefe joins me now from Philadelphia near a fundraiser for Democratic Senate candidate John Fetterman, as we mentioned earlier. And President Biden is attending that fundraiser. Ed, so tell me a little bit about why the president is there, returning to his favorite battleground state.
This is like his flex play, John, every few weeks. You know, if you haven't been here in about 6 weeks or so, something's wrong. It's his 14th visit as commander-in-chief to Pennsylvania, his favorite battleground state. He mentioned 19 visits to Pittsburgh. We think that's including stops he made when he was vice president. This is the state he was born in. This is the state he lived next to. This is his media market when he was a senator, Philadelphia. So he knows it well. And it's his belief and the White House's belief that he can help Democrats here win this key Senate race, help win the governor's race, although that's a far different makeup, and also help with some potential competitive House races. Notable, though, that the only candidate on the ballot in November who's with him today is Fetterman. This is something that they'd been trying to put together for a while, but because of the president's COVID diagnosis, because of some other scheduling issues, they had to put it off. Now they're doing it tonight, and he's got a similar closed-door fundraiser planned for Charlie Crist down in Florida in a few weeks. Beyond that, though, he continues to do these kind of official events in this state and in other places, making the argument that what he and Democrats were able to do, in some cases with a little Republican assistance, is an example of what they'd continue doing and why they deserve to hold on to control of Congress.
So, Ed, if you were to separate his speech into red meat and then another portion that would be sort of down the middle infrastructure, you know, because there were Republicans that were worked with on the infrastructure bill, that would be kind of a more centrist message rather than red meat that you throw to the base. How did he achieve that mix in what you've heard him say?
Well, the only real bit of red meat in this was the fact that Republicans who voted against it have reached out to the White House asking for the federal aid that's now in that legislation. And he's kind of saying, look, you know, you can say you were against it and then try to tout the federal funding, but let's not forget that you didn't support it. Right. You know, in essence, not letting Republicans get away with it. He can use the bully pulpit to do that in the way he did today with a soft touch, but pointed out the fact that they simply aren't for it. Also suggesting that Republicans would like to undo some of the other legislation just passed by Democrats, including that big so-called Inflation Reduction Act that doesn't necessarily deal with short-term inflation, but they hope deals with it long-term.
Although as red meat goes, so a little bit of carpaccio, but not the real, not real big doses of it. After the speech in Pittsburgh, the president was asked about his campaign targets. Let's hear what he had to say.
Do you have any plans to go to Nevada or Georgia in the coming weeks?
Pardon me?
To Nevada or Georgia?
Both the congressmen asked me to go out and know when they'll be able to get out in Nevada, and Georgia asked me to come down. We're trying to work it out now.
Are you going to go next week?
I don't know where I'm going. I've got about 16, 18 requests around the country, so I don't know who's going where.
So, Ed, the president there was making it sound like he had a full plate, and perhaps he does. But in Ohio, the Democratic Senate candidate, Tim Ryan, has said that Biden shouldn't run again. In Arizona, Mark Kelly said he talked about the Biden administration's policy on immigration as being stupid. So it's not everywhere that he's welcome. How does the travel that he's done fit into that complexity?
It's a lot like today, where you use the trappings of the White House and the government travel account to appear in some of these places, but not tap into the campaign accounts, or the DNC's accounts, to hold a rally with the bunting and the signs and the loud Motown music and a large crowd of, like-minded Democrats. And that's what's been so curious to those of us who follow him, because if you look back at Barack Obama and Donald Trump, these guys were on multi-week, multi-stop barnstorming tours, even when they were unpopular, out there making the point that Democrats should be proud of what they have accomplished. Republicans should stick together with the president when it was Trump. He hasn't done that yet. He claims there's 16 to 18 events that they're working on in the coming 3 weeks or so. We're led to believe there's about that many. Where exactly they are, what exactly they'll be, though, is unclear. We've seen some versions of this in places like Maryland, Oregon, California. What do those states have in common? They're blue states, but they're blue states where a little padding from the president might help. It's if and when he goes to places like Arizona, Georgia, Nevada, Wisconsin, Michigan, and yes, here, but maybe for political reasons, not official ones, in front of a crowd instead of behind the closed doors just 2 blocks away, that might signal that they believe he actually can still do this. And if it's not him, we should point out, the First Lady's keeping a pretty robust campaign schedule. First Ladies in the past have done this. And former President Barack Obama's announced a bit of a swing through Georgia, Michigan, Wisconsin, and Nevada. Guess where we're unlikely to see the current president go? Georgia, Wisconsin, Michigan, and Nevada, because his numbers are underwater there. The poll we put out today, for example, from Nevada, signals real trouble for Democrats out there, and an understanding among voters in both parties that what they're voting for is control of the Senate. Well, if they're voting for control of the Senate and he's unpopular, then you better believe Nevada Democrats are saying, please, not here, sir.
Finally, quickly, Ed, John Fetterman's post-stroke health issues, is that coming up much? It's not something that a visit from the president could necessarily fix, except perhaps we're talking about the president and infrastructure and not that challenge for Fetterman's campaign.
Yeah, look, it's funny. You can come to this state, turn on the midday news, and just about every other ad is about him. It's either for or against him. If they're against him, it's about his alleged soft on crime record or the fact that, he may not be exactly who he says he is. No mention of the disability. The biggest test of this is probably going to be next week when there's a debate between him and the Republican Mehmet Oz. He's going to be able to use closed captioning software that people who have hearing issues, as he currently does because of the stroke, are able to use. Congressional staffers and lawmakers have used it before in Washington, but we've never quite seen it in a debate. And so while there are plenty of people who use this every day in their everyday life, we just haven't seen it in that political space. And let's just see after that what the reaction is among Pennsylvanians and whether it had any effect. This race is tightening. 2 points, 3 points, depending on the survey. Is that because of his health issues? Or is that because this is a competitive race in a competitive state and Republicans are coming home from Mehmet Oz? Yeah. We'll wait and see. But clearly, the out-of-state press has talked a lot about it. The in-state press continues to try to talk to his doctors, and the campaign refuses to make them available, save for the one sheet they put out yesterday. So there's enough discussion about it, at least in the press, and who knows? After next week's debate, we'll see if there's any concern.
And we should remind people, in a 50-50 Senate, where Republicans only need to pick up 1 net seat from Democrats, any state is scrutinized in every little thing it is because of that close Senate. Ed O'Keefe in Philadelphia.
Exactly.
Thanks, Ed.